I did my final essay project on the Volkswagen emission scandal of 2015. It's also known as the Dieselgate scandal, and it stands as one of the most significant cases of corporate deception in modern history, mainly because of the intentionality of the deception by the company. The scandal exposed Volkswagen's deliberate manipulation of diesel emissions tests, deceiving regulators, consumers, and environmental agencies. In this presentation, I will provide a comprehensive overview of the scandal covering its deceptive practices, a little bit of the criminal history, criminal investigation timeline, and an ethical analysis through the frameworks of Guy Adams and Danny Beaufort's administrative evil and Terry Cooper's responsible administrator. So, the Volkswagen's fraudulent practices stemmed from their inability to design an engine that met U.S. standards. The U.S. has strict emission standards where, according to the Clean Air Act, that all diesel vehicles have to go through emissions testing to ensure that the nitrogen oxide that they're pushing out whenever they're running isn't past the legal limit. So instead of developing an engine where they can produce like the legal limit of nitrogen oxide, they developed, well, actually, they didn't develop it. They received a testing software from a company called Bosch that made the testing where it would be like wrong. It went through like a practice mode. And so while the car was in testing mode, the production of nitrogen oxide that was produced was limited. And then whenever the vehicle actually went into driving mode, like a switch turned off and the reduction of pollution stopped, and they actually started emitting nitrogen oxide pollutants up to 40 times the legal limit. So not only were they intentional with ensuring that the software was able to pass the emissions test, they also marketed their cars as like diesel economic friendly alternatives, trying to compete with Toyota's Prius. And that's how they promoted it to their consumers, that they have this new diesel vehicle that is environmentally friendly. So this deception allowed the company to expand its market dominance within the United States and obviously increase its profits and allowed them to maintain a competitive edge, all at the expense of the public health, environment, or sustainability. Because whenever the public has too much nitrogen oxide polluted into the air, it affects our ozone, and our ozone affects people's asthma, respiratory systems, and a whole bunch of other health concerns. So a little bit about finally in 2013, West Virginia University wanted to research like how was it possible for a diesel engine to not have too much toxins being polluted out. And so they looked into Volkswagen's emissions software, and they realized that, hey, like this is actually polluting way worse than what you're saying. And they tried to give Volkswagen opportunity to fix it or warn them like, hey, we're going to have to tell the Environmental Protection Agency that these cars are actually they're polluting a lot of nitrogen oxide. And so in 2013, the California Air Research Board and the Environmental Protection Agency started formal investigations into Volkswagen's diesel engines. And then in 2015, finally, Volkswagen admitted that millions of the cars were equipped with the software, and that's whenever the Environmental Protection Agency issued a formal fraud notice to them, which publicly exposed the deception. It wasn't until 2016 that Volkswagen finally, admitted agreed to pay up to $14 billion in civil suits that the consumers passed against them, and they had to pay a fine of $4.3 billion for the criminal case. So, and a lot of the proceedings is still ongoing, mainly because not only that was what happened within the United States, but then the CEO is facing charges right now in Germany, since it is a German car. So Germany now is going after the CEO for the deception, but his trial is like ongoing because he has a lot of health concerns. But going into how the scandal ties into what we've learned in our class this year, so obviously it directly correlates with Balfour's and Adams' administrative evil concept, because it shows how, unethical decisions were institutionalized within the company. So, and this isn't just like an isolated wrongdoing where at first Volkswagen was just simply accusing the engineers of doing it, but in reality, it was the engineers told the executives, like there was a whole PowerPoint presentation that they presented to the company, and within the PowerPoint presentation before employing the software, like it states like the necessity of secrecy of what they're about to do, basically. So this wasn't just like an isolated wrongdoing, and it was a collective organizational effort, all in the pursuit of success, which is absolutely everything that Adams and Balfour discusses within administrative evil. And then it ties into Cooper's responsible administrator, as it shows further insights into the ethical failures of the company, like the executive leadership. So in the textbook, Cooper argues that the accountability must be upheld to the hierarchical structures, warning that ethical responsibility should not be sacrificed for institutional loyalty. So when Volkswagen's executive was pressured to dominate the U.S. market, their actions of directing the engineers to not only employ the software, but year after year, they instructed the engineers to improve the software in order to ensure that it stays undetectable during the emissions testings. Just shows a deliberate manipulation coming from the higher ups. So, all in all, the Volkswagen scandal exemplifies the dangers of unchecked corporate power and ethical neglect. By examining the deception, I was able to gain a deeper understanding of how administrative evil manifests within the large-scale institutions. And the case also proves to show the necessity of ethical accountability in corporate leadership, demonstrating that prioritizing profit over transparency and integrity leads to long-term consequences for consumers, regulators, and public trust. And yeah, that's it.